So just something fun to kick off the day as we join and wait for others to join. Have a great presentation for you this afternoon, but tell me or describe for me what your day has been like through the use of emojis.
I should have put a big smile. I started my day at the dentist.
Oh, I'm sure there's one of those emojis too. So
Hmm.
I have no idea if World Emoji Day is a real thing or not. Maybe somebody can Google that for me, and update us accordingly. But it's kind of a fun way to start our afternoon together.
I've seen a lot of people asking what's your most used emoji, and mine's always thumbs up because my kids will text me something and I'm like, thumbs up, okay.
Okay. Are they doing that in the chat box? I'm not seeing anything, but um, yeah, I would say the thumbs up is probably one in the heart for me. So
Uh-oh, we have somebody
this,
crying and
okay. I am just not seeing all the chats. Oh, there we go.
you got to push the chat button.
Yep, I know. Usually it tells me if there are multiple chats in the chat box, but it doesn't show that to me till later on. So, Miranda, I hope you're having a better day. I hope that is regarding the temperature of the area you live in and not some personal issues. So, Jordan, looking good there. Taylor's kind of got an interesting combination there. Jill is smiling at us, so thank you. This is kind of fun. Maybe we could just continue this for a whole hour. No, we have a great presentation, so do not want to take any time away from Charlie and Amanda. So we will give it one more minute for others to join us. So you do have time to throw your chat emoji in if you would. Kind of a fun thing to see what your day has been like so far through the use of an emoji. So, oh, yes, Miranda says no AC in the office. And indeed, that's a first world problem. I do occasionally reference first world problems. So, Amy, you're having a good day the way it looks. So, this is my third Zoom today. So, I don't know if there's an emoji for that or not, but we'll just give it a few more seconds. Charlie, have you joined us? I
Mhm.
didn't hear from you.
Yep, I'm in here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Continue to
Charlie, it's
see our
my throwback
numbers.
Thursday. I just had Justin Thorman at my house signing roofing and siding contracts. Like, oh, this takes me back.
Yeah, there is a fair amount of hammering going on in my neighborhood today. So well, as people are joining, let's go ahead and get started here. And I just want to say welcome to all of you to the July edition of the HomeNE webinar series. Thank you for joining us. I am Lori Ferguson, if I haven't met you before, and I'm a community consultant here at South Central Economic Development District. SCED, as we commonly refer to ourselves as, is the lead agent for the HomeNE network, which is designed for people from all across Nebraska and beyond our borders. HomeNE is an established network that's dedicated to bringing together people who are passionate about housing. We recognize through HomeNE the immense housing challenges in our rural communities. And by providing face-to-face and online opportunities, HomeNE helps to foster interaction as well as engagement and skill building to help individuals successfully address their community's housing challenges. So we haven't talked about the growth of HomeNE for quite a while because it's not just about numbers, but Sherry was sharing with me this morning that someone reached out to her and said they were apologetic because they couldn't attend today's webinar. And that feels like family to me, and that's really what this learning network has become. It's not about the numbers, as I said earlier, but it's about the connections that are being made through your participation in webinars and the gatherings. And our speaker today, Amanda, was sharing during our session at 12:30 that she has utilized connections she has made and reached out to other individuals who've been presenters or speakers and gleaned information and ideas from them. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who faithfully participate in the HomeNE Learning Network. So kudos to all of you. So today we are joined by Charlie McPherson and Amanda Engel of the McCook Economic Development Corporation. They're going to talk about what's going on in the city of McCook and what activities are going on there. So a big welcome to Charlie and Amanda, and thanks for being with us, both of you. We greatly appreciate it. Before we begin, I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourselves to our group today. Charlie, do you want to go
afternoon,
first?
everybody. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having us on the HomeNE series. I am Charlie McPherson. I'm the executive director over at the McCook Economic Development Corporation. I've been with the MEDC for a little over 2 years now. And prior to coming on, I was a business consultant with the Nebraska Business Development Center for almost 10 years. I'm a certified economic development finance professional, and I have my MBA from UNK. I'm going to turn it over to Amanda, who is our Director of Housing Development, and kind of just follow her lead for a bit.
Yeah, so I actually joined McCook Economic Development Corporation shortly after Charlie as our Director of Housing Development. And my background is in construction management and interior design. So no economic development background. I think when I complained about housing in McCook enough, people were like, well, maybe you can help us solve the problem, be a part of the solution. So that was kind of how I found myself at MEDC, and we have over the last couple of years accomplished a lot, I feel like, and are on track to only accomplish more. So it's been an exciting and busy few years for both Charlie and I as we kind of dove headfirst into these positions.
Super. Go ahead and share what great information you have for us today.
Yeah, so I'll share a little bit about McCook and kind of some of our main housing projects that we have going on currently. And kind of our approach at this time is that we're trying to harness the economies of scale so that we can kind of bring down some of our costs of materials and labor. We were just actually, many of you probably are a part of the regional groups that Governor Pillen is doing with the Mid-Plains regions for economic development. And our region had the first housing discussion this week, and it was kind of funny. It kind of stepped right into this, and everybody was really talking about how we have to scale our projects to make it all make sense for rural Nebraska, just with the cost of things and the lack of, developers that we have in our region. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just a little background about McCook. We're about 7,400 people as far as our population. We've had a steady decline over the past decade. We, like many Nebraska communities, kind of boomed in like the 50s and 60s, and then have kind of slowly declined since then. We have a relatively, I would say, lower median income compared to some other Nebraska communities, like compared to like an I-80 community or some eastern Nebraska cities. And we have kind of a unique location. So it works to our advantage and to our disadvantage, unfortunately, sometimes. So we're not on I-80. We're about 68 miles south of North Platte. And we're about 15 minutes from the Kansas border. And so then when you look at a map too, we're like about smack dab in the center between Denver and Omaha. So it's about like half to one dozen. Yeah, where do you want to go shopping? Well, it doesn't really make a difference. You're going to drive about the same difference. So yeah, next slide, please. And then to
And
kind
I
of,
was just going to touch back on that real quick. We're also centered between I-70 in Kansas and I-80 in Nebraska. So we do have a unique position in that aspect, that we are in the clear southwest corner of the state. However, we're pretty centralized in that perspective between Omaha and Denver and I-70 and I-80.
yeah. So then kind of like piggybacking off of that median income to paint a picture of who our main employers are and who we're really, who's really needing housing as far as their hiring process and things. We have a couple large manufacturers in town. We have a really large, I think large for our area healthcare system. We have a hospital that's very proactive in our community, a clinic, and they have different outpatient, offerings as well. And then our public school system, our Walmart, is a very busy Walmart in our region because of our location, and we're surrounded by a lot of smaller communities or people traveling from Kansas who don't want to pay sales tax on food. And then we have a couple big financial institutions, as well as we have a location for Mid-Plains Community College. So in coming into my role and Charlie coming into his role, we really made an effort to go out and speak with a lot of these businesses, among many, many others. We had a laundry list of people that we went and spoke with, but a lot of them came to us and said, we're really struggling to find housing for our higher paid positions. People wanted to come to our community. They wanted to work. They were going to be paid a great salary. And then they came to our community and they were a little disheartened when they looked at our real estate market. They were like, oh, my wife is never going to go for this kind of thing. And so we kind of had a demand for some market rate housing and kind of upper level workforce housing, I would say. You can go to the next slide, please. So our housing studies showed us that, our conversations showed us that, and then when you kind of brought it to the numbers, it showed that with minimal to no growth, even some steady decline still occurring in our population, we were going to be short about a little over 100 houses, and that was for owners, and then about 76 units for rentals. So of course, in economic development, we're working to grow the city. So in our mind, those numbers, excuse me, are going to be larger. So we knew we had a lot of work to do. So kind of like I mentioned, that main need that was really identified through the housing study and through the community surveys, through our conversations, was that need for higher level housing. We just hadn't really had any builders locally that had been investing in housing other than the one-off custom build here or there that they were contracted to do. And so our housing was just kind of falling behind the game, and we had, and still do as we're getting our new homes constructed, but we have homes from the 80s that haven't been touched that are selling for, what people would probably expect a newer home to sell for, because we just didn't have the inventory of what we should have had. And then as far as our rental target range, we're really needing more that kind of median income workforce, those people who are working in retail, maybe just entering into the education field, kind of not really a market rate rental. We need affordable rentals in our community, which we knew as well. We do help co-manage a low income property in town, and our wait list for those is fairly extensive. So we were pretty aware that that was going to be of high demand. So when Charlie and I came into our positions, our board had really kind of set us up with three main targets that they really wanted to see us dive right into and chip away at. So our board was kind of noticing the trend that, they had tried to build a house here or there, or look at what they could do with rentals, and the numbers weren't working out. So they got really aggressive and actually went out, and we used LB 840 to purchase some different areas of larger land in the community or right outside of the community that could be annexed in for different housing projects. So we had an area in town that was about 1.5 acres in a developed neighborhood, one of the more recently developed neighborhoods, which was developed in like the 70s and 80s. And it was just green space. There had been a local contractor who had looked to build duplex housing on it. So it was platted and everything. He had gone through and done the sewer improvements. But then COVID hit and he became busy with everything else. And so he kind of had to weigh the pros and cons, and he decided ultimately that he wasn't going to see that project through, and he sold that land to the MEDC. So we purchased that, and so it was platted for 6 duplexes, so 12 individual lots that could be sold off. And we really heavily marketed that as, again, being really aggressive, that we were willing to give that land to a developer if they would come in and build duplex housing, trying to meet the needs of finding those people who are aging in place in their homes currently that maybe aren't suitable for aging in place, that could move out to somewhere that's less maintenance, no steps, a little bit safer for them probably, and then open up their family home, which is hopefully in that more affordable price range for young families in the community to have opportunity there. And then the next area is a 9-acre parcel of land that the EDC purchased. It was just outside of city limits. So we had to annex it, we replatted it, and we accommodated about 29 lots, with most of them being about 100 by 100. And there was no infrastructure. It was zoned agriculture. So we had to go through the rezoning process and had to take a pretty big risk of putting in the infrastructure. And then the last kind of target that the board had given us was a multifamily area of land. It's kind of a unique story. We didn't actually purchase this area of land. Somebody gave it to the MEDC. I don't actually really know the story behind it. Charlie might. And it is adjacent to an existing multifamily complex. So it's perfect for that. It's close to the park. There's a walking trail that's really not far from there that it can connect to. And it's also really close to our community hospital and clinic and airport. So the legwork is kind of already set for that project to be really suitable for multifamily development.
So I don't have the story on how the EDC acquired that property, but going back just kind of what Amanda alluded to, our board was very aggressive to acquire those properties because like most communities, space is at a premium and we're pretty much filled to our corporate limits. So there's not a lot of options and opportunities for building housing projects. But when they did become available or they presented themselves, our board was quick, made quick action to try and acquire that. And, we sat on those properties for a while and until we had kind of an idea and a vision and how we wanted to move forward with. So yeah, it's been a really good, interesting ride along the way. We kind of hit the ground running and we've tried, we've had a lot of conversations in the beginning, and first it was kind of that multifamily apartment complex was the big need, and then we kind of switched gears to some of these other projects a little bit, and it's been a good ride, and we're kind of figuring things out as we go. We have a lot of good discussions and conversations internally, but we also have those with external developers and builders and what they're seeing and what they're different things that they need to make a project like these a little bit more attractive to them.
Yeah. If you'd like to go to the next slide, Sherry. So this is that northeast project that I was explaining. That was just green space in a developed neighborhood. that was already platted and ready to go. The only thing that needed to be done was some electrical backbone work. And so we had conversations with several developers across the state. Again, we were offering the land for free. We have rural workforce housing dollars. We ended up making a really good relationship with a developer out of Seward. And he's in the area now building 3 of the duplexes. So we kind of phased it into 2 phases because we didn't want to flood the market with a bunch of duplexes, not knowing if we knew we could support them, but we wanted to ensure, as we all know, again, even though we're scaling it, the price was right in line with what we wanted. But we wanted to make sure that we weren't putting out too much to the market at once. And the developer also kind of wanted to feel it out as well. He wasn't familiar with our area. He built duplexes in other communities, and that was how we kind of came in touch with him. A board member actually had extended just a conversation with him, and then everything kind of transpired pretty quickly from there, actually, and we felt really comfortable with what it was that he had to offer. And he knew kind of, what we were after. He understood, the rural workforce housing. He had worked with some communities prior that had used rural workforce housing. So that was really beneficial, and they've been really great to work with. So we're building out lots 1 through 4 on the top of that area now, and then lots 6 and 7 on the right side. And then we gave them the first option on the rest of the lots. So his goal is that once these all sell, then they'll start in next year on the additional plans. And so there was a couple things that we went back and forth on, not really him so much as the board. So I think something for communities to consider, and it is difficult sometimes because we're all in different points in our life, different points financially, different points in our children's lives. So we all have kind of different priorities when we're looking at what it is that we feel is important in a home. And so, the price point that we were given was, again, right on par with what we wanted, but there was a couple things that the board was pretty felt very strongly about that they wanted included that did increase the price slightly of these. And that was, as we all know, I think you guys were just talking about roofing and siding. I'm assuming a hailstorm. So we get a lot of hail in McCook. We've had a lot of bad weather this summer alone. And so we opted to upgrade from a traditional vinyl siding to a siding that is a lot more sturdy and will withhold that weather a little bit better. So that was, that's an upgrade that a community really wouldn't maybe need to do. And it was one that we weighed pretty heavily with these of, well, is that, worth the cost? Is it worth people paying that increased price and that affordability? But we ultimately decided that, they want low maintenance. These people that are going to move in want low maintenance homes. If our grandma was moving into these homes, would we want her to, have this material or that material? So that was something that we compromised on, and did upgrade. And then similarly, we also opted to upgrade to include a reinforced room for storm safety also. So that since these don't have basements, grandma's not calling somebody asking if she can drive clear across town in a storm to get in their basement. So we felt that families would feel more comfortable with having those 2 upgrade options in there. So again, it increased the price, and it probably, it's hard sometimes for people to justify that value, but we felt from a safety and quality standpoint that it was pretty important. And the builder was willing to work with us on that, which was really great. So construction started on these this spring. We were really optimistic because we had a pretty mild winter that maybe we would be able to get some work done over the winter. we had nice weather. We didn't have a lot of snow. So we had our groundbreaking ceremony in December. And then right after that is when all the snow came. So we had to kind of put everything on pause. It was kind of funny, but we were just really excited. We hadn't had a project like this for the community for a long time. The community was really excited since these were being assisted through rural workforce housing funds. So there was no income restrictions tied to them because we had done, some low income projects previously with Mesner. And so we had kind of had this, I don't want to say stigma, but people just had this idea that we just helped with low income housing. So people were kind of like, oh, I could qualify to purchase one of these homes. So there was a lot of excitement around this project. So we're building some 2-bedroom, 2-bath plans and then some 3-bedroom, 2-bath plans. So they're both around 1,400 square feet, 0 entry, 2-car attached garage. And they're selling for $274,900. So before we even had the slabs poured for them, we had 2 of them sold. So the 3-bedroom, 2-bath options both sold right away, which was kind of funny because, again, that was something we really went back and forth on. We were like, does somebody at that point in their life need a 3-bedroom home? And the market told us what it wanted, I guess. So the next several that will be built will be 3-bedroom, 2-bath, most likely, because those have been the ones that people have expressed the most interest in. So if you go to the next slide, it should show kind of where we're at today. So this was on Tuesday morning. So as of today now, they have all the sheathing on the roofs and they are shingling. Windows and doors are in, not garage doors, but they are moving quite quickly and they have an anticipated completion date of the end of August, beginning of September. So we're really excited for that. And again, so we had gotten quotes early on and to just do 1 duplex, just the build cost was around $300,000 for something really similar. So working with, this developer and doing several at once was really cost advantageous to us. And that was kind of how we had to scale that project to make it work. So then we mentioned the North Point addition. So this was that 9-acre parcel of land that was not within city limits that we purchased. This was a really big leap for our board. I think some people thought we were a little crazy for it, but we knew there was a need. So we've had people express that they want to build homes in the community, but like Charlie mentioned, we just didn't really have land available for people to build. We've had to have a couple lots for sale on our golf course, but that's not everybody wants to live on a golf course and stuff. So they purchased this land, again, no infrastructure. There were already some existing homes surrounding it, some along the bottom of the screen there, those lots 1 through 5, those are pre-existing homes that have been developed over the last 5 to 10 years. And so we came in with the use of TIF, and we are doing a phased infrastructure approach with these lots to make them available for the community. So we just paved S Street and half of West 9th Street as you look at the screen. Put in water and sewer. We worked with our local communications companies and put in all the lines for fiber internet services. Natural gas came in and put in their services. So they're really ready for somebody to come in and build on them right away. So again, we're utilizing TIF. We knew people were going to purchase the lots to build, but we knew we had to have, something rolling on that. So we wanted to build some spec houses there just to set the tone for the area of what like our expectation is for the homes that'll be in the area. B, maybe there's people who don't want to go through the work of working with the contractor, selecting plans, all of the stuff that comes with building a home. So we wanted to have that kind of offering ready for them. So we again sought out different developers across the state. We told them we had the land. That's our ribbon cutting, sorry, that we held this fall. But you can see they were so quick. They started ahead of schedule with the road that they had already started the road behind us by the time we had cut the ribbon. But that was exciting. So that's kind of that process there. But so we had worked with, speaking with developers, and what a lot of developers told us when they would build spec houses was, we don't want the risk on us of listing the home and it potentially not selling in the end, and we're stuck holding onto this house. So we really had to kind of think creatively as to how we were going to fund the build of these homes and ensure that we were mitigating the risk of any builder that came in to build these homes, because we knew based upon our costs for the infrastructure and everything and our projections that we really wanted 5 to 7 homes to be built right away in this area. And so we went out again and had conversations with different organizations, different groups, different private individuals in the community. And we had some awesome people step up to the plate, and they're acting as investors for these homes. They're paying to build these homes, and they'll profit off the sale of them, to ensure that we could have 5 homes for a builder to build. So the lots that are shown as not available, lots 1, 2, and 3 on the north side of S, and lots 7 and 6 are where we have those investor groups or investors who are building spec homes. And then the MEDC is overseeing that build and working with the builder. And then, so the builder that's actually building these, we had interviewed a couple and we had gotten a couple proposals. Ultimately ended up being the same builder and developer who's building those duplexes across town. So that was another way that we were able to bring down some costs, because they have guys going back and forth between the sites. So, that's a lot of building that some of our local trades can't really handle the, that much work already with their workload of the current projects they have ongoing in the community. So to bring in an electrician from Grand Island, it really saves a lot of costs for them to be able to go back and forth between the sites as guys are working and everything. So then we have remaining 12 lots available for sale that we are, have listed now that the infrastructure is complete and we're in the process of building those homes. So we did, though, go ahead and we put covenants on the area. So we have I think this is just a Nebraska, like a rural community thing, but we strongly wanted to discourage people from building barn dominiums in this area. We wanted it to be single family homes, and we wanted to ensure that people who purchase these lots were utilizing them to build houses. We didn't want people buying, 3 lots so they had their house in the middle one and then a nice large yard. Or larger yard. These are nice size lots, but we just really wanted to ensure that we had area for the community to grow and for people to build on for a few years to come. So we think we've accomplished that, and we have plans to expand upon it as this phase fills up over the next couple years. And we're pretty excited for that. So if you go to the next slide, this is kind of where we're at today with those spec homes. So we're in the framing stage on these. 2 of them are completely framed up, and they now are shingling those here too. And the electricians are doing electrical rough-ins. We're building 3 different plans. So ranging from 1,220 to just under 1,500 square feet on the main level. And then we're partially finishing the basements too. So there's a 4th bedroom and a 3rd bathroom that's finished. All have 3-car attached garages. And the prices are ranging from just under $350 to $450. So the largest of the homes, the one that was listed for $450, actually sold when the foundation was poured. And then we've had a lot of interest in these other homes. So it's been really exciting, and it's exciting when you're up on the job site to see the community drive through, and they're just curious what's going on. And, we don't see development like this in the community or haven't. And so it's just kind of something new for the town of McCook, and we're really excited to be a part of it. But, without the help of those investors and without that builder committing to building that many homes, we would definitely not be able to hit the price points that we're hitting with these homes, especially with a finished basement. And what's funny is none of these were intended to have finished basements. One of the investors just said, I think I want to finish my basement. I wonder how much that would cost. And so we talked to the builder, and then he was like, I think I want to do that. And then everybody else was like, well, if he's going to do it, then we're going to do it. So we ended up with all of them having finished basements in them, which I think is great because, again, these will be fantastic homes for families, for those healthcare providers that are moving in, that our hospital is recruiting, for those higher paid positions at Valmont and Parker, and or for people in our community who want to step up from maybe their older home to look at moving into something like this, and again opening up maybe a home that's in that $200,000 price range or something.
The other neat thing about this project is going back to it. Yep. McCook hasn't had a new subdivision prior to 1980. So that's the other exciting part. Yes, space is being limited. There's a lot of one-off builds here and there and some different things, but the community itself hasn't had a new subdivision with lots and streets and infrastructure till now since prior to 1980. So that's pretty exciting for the community, and to have that many lots available for building and purchase is a great asset to have. And then just kind of fill in some of the gaps on why we are working with the investors and the builders are. A lot of our discussions early on with developers and builders kind of went the course that where we're located, it's a little bit costlier to build just in general than a lot of other places, being not along the interstate, kind of off the beaten path, etc. So it was worthwhile for builders and developers when they're looking at new subdivisions or a housing development project in Lincoln or Omaha, that they'll go in and they'll do the infrastructure and streets and things themselves because they'll get that return there. However, not knowing McCook and understanding our area and the community, a lot of them felt the infrastructure would need to be in place before they, could take on a project of that size. So we really had some strong conversations on, if we're really serious about moving these projects forward, we need to assume that risk and liability ourselves and kind of be the pre-developer, if you will, and get everything arranged so it's ready for somebody to come in and just build right away, whether it's a one-off local individual or it's a developer wanting to do multiple builds. We thought it was in our best interest to take that investment ourselves. So we are financing the street paving and the infrastructure, but our plan is to offset that with the tax increment financing on that. And Amanda mentioned the 5 spec homes being built, and then that number 7. When we were doing our projected cash flows on the TIF, it basically, once you got to that number 7 number of houses being built, it offset our loan payments with the TIF coming in. So basically it was a wash. And that's how we're able to kind of finance that with the help of TIF to get these properties going.
Yeah. And I guess I would mention too, we haven't really gotten much heat for it, but we really did try to work as best as we could in giving all of our local guys opportunities for both of these projects. And they just have we have mostly small 1-2 man crews who are out here building houses. And so it was really hard for them to commit to building as many houses as we really needed. And so we did have to opt, working with somebody outside of the community, but we feel that this will only provide opportunities for our locals, contractors, and, trades because some of them are getting to work on these jobs also. But B, they're really seeing the momentum that's surrounding them. And we now have some local guys who are interested in building maybe one spec home a year, or kind of getting into more of that game. And we're willing to help them out with it however we can, and be, generous and ensuring that they're successful in that. And so that's been really great to see. Because I know that's always, you want to support local as much as you can, and that's definitely our goal, but the numbers couldn't work out this time, unfortunately. So kind of including them in the project was the best way for us to be successful with that. So then that last kind of goal that our board had, we haven't met yet. We're still working on it, but we felt it was worth mentioning, because maybe another community has some insight on a project similar to this. So this area is next to a pre-existing 24 unit apartment complex. It was the last apartment to be built in McCook of that size, and that was built in 2000. So it's pretty dated at this point, being about 25 years old. But we have spoken with several developers. We've gotten pro formas back and everything, and we're just trying to work through the numbers to make sure that we're really hitting that target of what that housing study said. We really need, and what we know that we need based upon living here. So we certainly have developers who could come in and who would be willing to build apartment complexes right now, but rent would be, $1,200 to $1,400 a month, based upon the numbers that we've received. And we just don't feel that our community can support that. We need something more around, just under $1,000, around that $1,000 range, probably. And so we're still actively working on this project. But we feel that this is, a really great prospect for a developer. Again, we're willing to give the land. It's in a blight and substandard area. Infrastructure is located nearby. This was a survey that was done at one point, so we know that we can fit approximately 2 more 24 unit complexes on there. Our goal would be to phase it and just do one 24 unit complex and then come in a few years later and do the next one again. So we know we have that rental demand, but we don't want to, just come in with an influx of rentals and not be able to make it work right away for the developer. We think it would be best to phase it. But we're still actively working on this target goal, but we feel that 2 for 2 in 2 years is probably, a pretty good mark for now. But we hope that maybe the next time we have conversations with people on here, that this is something that we've accomplished, because our community desperately needs rental housing. We get calls daily that, I'm looking to move back to McCook. I'm not ready to buy a house yet, but I want to rent. And it is really difficult in a rural community, especially when you're not local, to find rentals, because a lot of our landlords are kind of mom and pop guys, and they put a sign in the yard and the next day it's rented. They don't post on Facebook, they don't post on the internet. So it makes it kind of difficult for people coming to our community. And we hear frequently from community members that they would like to see more apartment rental style options, as opposed to, homes and things like that. They want kind of that minimal maintenance, that community style living, some of the accommodations that come with living in an apartment. And then the last project I'll mention, so this was not on our target goal list, but this is also a project we have ongoing that transpired through a relationship that we had with somebody not in the community, but somebody from Nebraska. They wanted to come to McCook and they wanted to build workforce housing, but they weren't requesting any rural workforce housing dollars. They have their own kind of business model as to how they are building houses across Nebraska. We had really gotten into connection. Our community had been granted a grant through DED that unfortunately did not work out. That was meant to tear down a 100-year-old hospital that we have in the community that's been falling into disrepair. It's a beautiful building, but it's unfortunately just boarded up windows and a nuisance for our community. So we had applied for that with the intent to tear that down, but it didn't work out. And this builder slash developer wanted to build on that area where that hospital was going to be torn down. So when that didn't work, we really put on our thinking caps, and we looked at, okay, is there anywhere else in town that they could build? And there had been these lots for sale just adjacent to our golf course, on and off over the last several years. Nobody had developed on them. They're in kind of a unique location because they're close to the golf course, but they're also pretty close to highway commercial. So I offered them, I said, these lots have been for sale. I think you could purchase them at a really good price. And they're in a blighted and substandard area, so it works with your business model, and the infrastructure is already in place. So it was kind of like a diamond in the rough, really. And they took a chance on them, and they are building 3 single-family homes there also. So they're really working on economies of scale, but they're doing it on a completely different scale. They're looking at a Nebraska-wide scale because they're building in several communities. But this is kind of the floor plan of what they're building. And these homes will be for sale for $300,000. They're about 1,300 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, unfinished basement, a walkout basement since it is close in proximity to the golf course. And they have just started on the foundations of these, and we have already had a ton of interest in these as well. So kind of people who are expressing interest in these homes are, interestingly enough, kind of more of that retired age. People who want to settle down, but they want to live close to the golf course. And so you can see kind of that view that they have looking over the front 9 of the Heritage Hills Golf Course. It's a pretty great view. It's close to the Copper Mill restaurant. What more could you want? It is really a unique location, and the builder has already expressed that they want to continue building in McCook. There's some land available just to the, well, it's not available, but some land to the north of there that hasn't been developed. It's privately owned. It needs the infrastructure. And they're kind of thinking about maybe having conversations to see if that person would consider selling it and they would put in the infrastructure, which would be a huge win for McCook. As Charlie and I know, we just went through the whole process of putting in infrastructure at North Point. It is a process. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of risk. So we would love for somebody else to be able to do that in the community and take that on. So this is like the most building that we've seen in McCook in a really long time. I think our building inspector wants to smack me across the face because he has a lot of work right now. But it's really cool to see on paper just the number of new construction home permits that, in the last couple of months we have helped bring to the community, and the response has been positive. Our realtors are really excited. Community members are excited. We're seeing people who have wanted to move to McCook but couldn't find houses, looking at these homes, which is a huge win to help grow our community. So we're really excited for all of that progress.
Yeah, and in addition to these housing projects, we're also working on a 40-acre expansion to our industrial and business park. Our public school, swimming pool officially opened yesterday. We hadn't had a swimming pool for about 2 years now. So that was a big hit for the kids in the community and families. That got to open up. And yeah, there's a lot of great projects going on. We're all extremely busy, but it's been really fun and exciting to get through these different phases of these projects.
Okay, thank you, Charlie and Amanda. We do have your contact information on the screen there for our attendees to jot down if they want to know more about this. But we're also going to have a time of Q&A. So this is the time to open your microphones or use your chat box. What questions came to mind as you heard Amanda and Charlie give their presentation, or even comments? It doesn't have to always be a question.
kudos to all that they have going on in McCook. It's really fun to see, you know, you're not, it's just inspiring. Sometimes we get really overwhelmed because, oh, we need 60 homes, we need 150 homes, we need whatever. And you think about, in Omaha, they can do 900 unit subdivisions or whatever. And so to see a rural Nebraska community just knocking it out, a few out of here and a few there and a few more over there and an infill lot and some new land, but just really utilizing what you have, it's very inspirational. And thank you so much for agreeing to share that with us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So tell me, and you don't have to be to the penny, but what is the investment into the infrastructure?
It's around 900,000 right now. And so too, it was a really big learning process for us. So there were some things that we did not anticipate. Like we knew, for instance, we utilized our city to send out the bid process and approve a lot of that so that we made sure it was to the city's specifications. We're very fortunate. We actually have an engineer on our board who does a lot of work for us and for the city, which is a huge advantage. And so we were able to work with him, but there was some unexpected costs associated with electrical work within PPD. There's like some cost share stuff that you have to do there, but then the backbone work was in addition to that, and we hadn't anticipated for that up front. So that was kind of a learning curve. And then even just some like things as simple as I didn't realize that our postal office doesn't deliver door to door to new homes, new addresses anymore. So even something as small as an investment in putting down a pad and having to put in a cluster mailbox unit for the development and stuff like that was a learning, just something I hadn't really considered. So it was kind of interesting. But yeah, so we're around that $900,000 mark.
Okay. Super. Questions for Amanda or Charlie?
I just want to pop in and say, I grew up in Maywood, which is just 35 miles north of McCook. And growing up, I graduated in 2012, so I'm getting old, but I'm not old yet. But McCook just always kind of had a reputation growing up that it was kind of like a dying town or stagnant. And again, that's a teenage perspective. But as I've entered the economic development world in the last couple of years, I've been hearing so much great stuff about McCook and what they're doing and the growth and a lot of development. So this was just a really exciting presentation for me because that area of Nebraska just holds a special place in my heart. So good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of the housing and infrastructure and street work, is pretty old. I think there's been different leadership throughout the decades that kind of kick the can down the street a little bit, if you will. Whether it is save money or focus on other projects they felt were more important. But it really seemed like over the last 5 to 10 years in McCook, a lot of these things came to a bottleneck. And it was just kind of a matter of time before we just had to take what we had and see what we can change and do better with. And that's kind of the culmination we're seeing right now with these housing projects, because we haven't had major subdivisions or anything like that, for a really long time, and having to have new infrastructure in these different areas. But it also goes with the public swimming pool. It was one of the oldest originally open pools in the entire state, throughout the state. So that's probably something they could have addressed, 20, 30 years ago, but that's something that needed to be done now, and some other things like that. I'm not trying to talk down on it. It's just the matter of what it was. And we have a really good board of directors that really want to see the community be progressive and move forward for the future. And we got to be along for the ride, and it's been a lot of fun, and we really enjoy it.
Sounds good. It's like Sharon says, activity breeds activity. And so one thing led to another, and now McCook is starting to boom, if I can say it that way. So
hopefully
to restore its Yeah, restore it back to its rightful place in Southwest Nebraska. So I have one other question for you, but I don't want to, you know, take time if anybody has a question for Amanda or Charlie. So let me dive into my question. You've both been in your job roughly 2 years. Sounds like you've had a steep learning curve, maybe even at times vertical and or, going the opposite direction. What advice would you give to a community who maybe is represented today, thinking, wow, if we could only do that? What's it one important piece of advice? You've kind of touched on some different things, but what's one takeaway that you could share with the community over the past 2 years that you've learned, experienced, wish you would have done different? Address that if you would, please. Amanda, you want to go first, or
Sure.
Charlie?
So I guess, when I first came into my role and I really was learning about economic development, I feel like I learned the most from, I just looked through a list of communities that we saw that were being successful. And I just called them and asked them questions and for advice. I think Sharon was one of the people I called actually. And just looking for, do you have resources that you recommend I look into? HomeNE was one that was suggested. I think we learn the most from our connections across the state, and getting to, going to conferences like NEDA or, even your guys' HomeNE gathering, the governor's summit, just things like that where you can branch out and talk to people and hear what they're doing in their communities. It might not work for your community, but there might be pieces of it that you can take back to your community. And that's kind of what we did here. I mean, I think there's pieces that we kind of probably took from, our conversations with Gary or even our conversations with Ron and Holdridge. So it's just a matter of kind of taking that puzzle and fitting it to, what works best for McCook and your needs. Because a lot of us have really similar needs. It's just we can't all have the same person accomplish be the solution. So we have to think creatively to find different people to be the solution. So yeah.
For me,
Thank you.
economic development wasn't completely foreign. Working in my previous role, I worked with a lot of economic development directors in our region. Seen a lot of them come and go. So it wasn't completely foreign to me, just some different processes. For example, that North Point, it was outside city limits. So we had to replat, rezone, annex in, go through all those processes in front of city council that I've never experienced firsthand. So there was a little bit of a learning curve in those. My best advice for somebody new getting into it is teamwork's been the number one thing for us. Have a good team, a supporting team around you. Amanda and I, our offices are right next to each other. We're always bouncing ideas and brainstorming and talking. And what are your thoughts? Well, what do you think this would go? And so we brainstorm and talk things out a lot, pretty detailed. And then if we think it's something that has some viability to it, then we'll go talk, to the board about it. So it's our team. We all have important roles, but we all work really, really well together. And a lot of it is learning as you go and asking questions. So that's been really big for us in here, being fairly new to the industry. And the other thing is be patient and don't give up. You'll probably get 1,000 no's before you find a little bit of interest. But once you get that interest, you got your foot in the door and just start moving along. We went through quite a few slow periods, some down periods, wondering if we're ever going to get anything built. And we just kept at it. Amanda's always making phone calls, reaching out. I'm trying to, go through my network of individuals that I've met and built relationships throughout my career, just asking questions. I relied on people that have a lot more knowledge and expertise than I do, especially Gary and Ron. I'll email them or call them up and have questions because I value their knowledge and expertise. They've been doing it for a lot longer than I have, and they're reaping the benefits. So I like to take little bits and pieces from what other communities or individuals are doing seeing how we can make it work here and kind of tweak it a little bit. There's really not one cookie cutter approach. You can have ideas and different things from other communities or individuals, but you got to figure out how to make it work in your community. So,
And I think having a
Super.
good relationship with your city staff is really, really important. I mean, we're in their office, in their ears, you know, sharing our crazy ideas. And sometimes they're probably like, oh gosh, I don't want to dive into that, you know, problem. But we're all ultimately kind of working together towards the same goals. And so being, you know, having a good working relationship is really helpful when you are going to city council and proposing that you want to annex land into the city, and you know, want to get through your CDA to do a redevelopment plan and utilize TIF, because some communities aren't, you know, we're really blessed. Our community sees the advantages of TIF and sees how it, you know, benefits the community in the long run. But I know some communities are a little bit more hesitant to utilize it and stuff. So just having that relationship and working together is really important.
Good. Thank you. Great advice. Yeah, I think just those partnerships and be willing to make the ask. And I'm so glad that we asked you both to be part of our HomeNE webinar today. Thank you for your time and your information. It's greatly appreciated. We really have enjoyed having all of or both of you here today. So as we begin to close, I just want to remind you that today's webinar will be on our HomeNE.us website, as well as past webinars. There's a search feature there, and if you can't remember the title, don't worry. You can search with any name or any word that came to mind. So easy to find, easy to navigate. And we know that a lot of you do go back to webinars and review those again. So Amanda and Charlie will be one that you will probably refer to time and time again. So, and then just to let you know what next month's webinar is going to be, we're going to have a return presenter. Ben Conover with Conover Properties is going to be joining us. Ben was with us back in February of 2022 with DED staff, talking about his conversions of upper stories and just work that he was doing in the northeast part of the state. So we're going to revisit some of his projects that were underway at that time and just see what he's completed and what he's working on now. So feel free to join us on August 15th for that session as well. So once again, thank you, Charlie and Amanda. It's greatly appreciated. And feel free to reach out to them with questions or comments or thoughts. We love to hear that connections are being made throughout the state as a result of HomeNE. So with that, if there's nothing else, thank you all for joining us. And I hope that you have a great